This video is about grants in a project finance transaction. Okay, so in this lesson, I want to talk to you a little bit about the things that you need to consider when applying for a grant. Okay, so the first thing that I want to mention is that one thing that you need to consider is that the grant is just another financing instrument like debt and equity. So the difference is that debt and equity, they have some side effect. They generate some additional cost, like interest that you need to pay on the loan and the reimbursement of the principal of the loan. And you need to also repay the shareholder equity and also remunerate them for their activities. So both of these instruments, debt and equity, they need to earn some premium on them, and it's going to be added to the project cost if you look at the cash flow waterfall. However, grant is the only instrument that doesn't bear any cost, and that is why it's a very competitive market. So when you're preparing your application, you need in your financial model, you need to apply the grant as a source of financing. I see that in some financial models, they just add the grant as a negative cost, which is not the right way to express it. And I'm going to show you later on in the other lessons how to model a grant in a project finance transaction. The other important question that you want to ask yourself is, at what time is the grant going to be available? Some of the grants are available during the development phase to fund some of the due diligence costs, the technical studies, legal or environmental studies. And so in terms of the financial modeling, I have a separate video on how to build a sources and uses of funds during development and for the development activities. And if you are a project developer or you are working for a development company, then I really recommend that you add that sources and uses of funds in your project finance models. So it can be just during development. If the grant is available during construction, so the other question that you need to ask is when exactly, at what time during construction is the grant going to be available? By knowing when is the grant going to be available, you know which cost it can finance. The other thing that you need to be careful when you're applying for a grant, which is available during construction, is to know how can you use the grant. Some of the donor agency, they want to promote some activities. For example, in a solar PV project, maybe the donor agency, they want to promote battery storage. So they're going to tell you that the cost of battery can be funded with the grant. Or if it is Islamic financing, then we know that these agencies, they cannot fund any interest or any financing cost. So their grant is going to be attached to a certain costs in the budget, in the construction budget. And some of the donor agencies, their plan is to promote the private sector activities in some sort of industries. So what they would do is that they would say the grant is available to reduce the amount of equity required. So it's not going to go to reduce the project cost, but it's going to go to reduce the project equity. And in the following lesson, we're going to look at the impact of these different types of grants. And if the grant is during operation, then it's going to be like another source of revenues in our cash flow waterfall. And most probably there will be some sort of mechanism to extract the cash, the grant, either through a cash sweep mechanism or other sort of mechanism that would allow the release from the grant, from the fund, and to support the operational activities of the project. So this was just an introduction to grant. In the next lesson, we are going to look at an Excel example, a project finance model, and we're going to look at the impact of grant, a scenario with the grant, and a scenario without the grant, and we're going to compare the project metrics.